Amser Muthul YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. We've got a few more subscribers. Thanks for that, guys. We've had some youngsters come and have a look at the place. We've had some do it virtually from England. So Archie and Fletch, I hope you enjoyed looking around the room. And we had Lacey come round in person yesterday. She seemed to really enjoy. So shout out to all you guys. Thanks for being involved with the Tim Reptile Room, and I understand some of you might be wanting some help with your own reptiles soon. So our producer, executive director, or whatever the term would be, has updated the channel somewhat, and
we've got a microphone.
Thanks to John at John's Rainforest Room for the advice, to our technical department. So hopefully you can hear me better today. As is customary with a lot of these reptile YouTube channels, we thought we'd do a video on breeding, propagating your own live food. I would like to do one on silkworms if we could keep the things alive longer than about 2 days. But what we haven't successfully managed to propagate is fruit flies for our baby five-bellied toads and our neon day geckos like them. And even our adult five-bellied toads will have a go at them. So we're going to do a little video of how to propagate those. Let's get on with today's video. You're going to need a container to keep your fruit fly culture in. So we've got these ones that we've purchased previously. You can see they've got foam bungs. We've got deli cups that we've purchased that have perforated fabric lids. But also we made our own perforated fabric lids on deli cups that we've purchased. We're using weed matting. You want to make sure these are clean before you use them because mites can build up in old cultures. So the first ingredient that we're going to use is beer. Just about any beer will do. This is an ale that we're using. Luckily it tends to come in the correct quantity that we require for this recipe, and that is 500 milliliters. The next ingredient we're going to be using is mashed potato flakes. That's one of the main ingredients in this recipe. So we just measure out around 200 grams. I know I go over slightly here, and we add that to the beer and mix it up. This is the main constituents of the recipe. There's a few other little bits that you're going to see coming up. And we've used this recipe on the two Drosophila species, the Melanogaster and the Hydae. The next ingredient we're going to use is vinegar. This is important to try and stop moulding within the culture. So we want 100 milliliters of white vinegar, and that will alter the pH to stop any nasties from growing where we don't want it to. Once this is added, we then look for a product that is probably more easily available in America, but over here we call it polenta, but you want a coarse cornmeal. So we measured out 1/4 of a cup of the coarse polenta cornmeal and added that. As you're adding a lot of these things, it might dry out the mixture a bit, but don't worry about it too much, because we're going to address that issue shortly. So we start to add water little by little. I think the first time we did this, we made it a bit too sloppy. We put too much water in the first place. So we very gradually add the water to try and make this into a mashed potato-y consistency. And then we add a bit of brewer's yeast. We got our brewer's yeast from an equine place. You get a big tub for about a tenner. Then we added some paprika, that's for colouring. Pigments hopefully go into the fruit flies and then eventually go to animals. The cinnamon, that may be for pigment, but also to help stop the nasties growing in here. And this is definitely for the pigment, the beetroot powder. If you're trying to add red pigment to the food to bring out the best colours in your animals, you may want to look at canfaxanthin, carophyll, which is a pigment put into canary food to bring out the intense reds in their plumage. So as you can see here, this is the final mix up of all the ingredients. We're trying to make sure everything is blended through well. It doesn't get too wet. Again, you can see it's adding water slowly each time. When we made our first cultures, I think we overdid the amount of food that we put in the bottom. So now we try and flatten it out and get it to around about 10 mil a centimetre deep. Any more than that seems overkill, but you want to make sure that there's plenty of food there for the fruit fly grubs. And then Excelsior. Now this is an Excelsior we've bought. This was very kindly made for us by a gentleman who was very handy with a chainsaw called Fred, and it's quite easy to make. They just use the chainsaw going the length of the wood rather than across the wood, and it makes you this Excelsior. And here you see our fruit flies that we've purchased. We're going to need to use these to start the culture. We want to get about 30 flies in here to start a culture, get them breeding. So just tap a few out, get a lid on as quick as we can. An extra pair of hands is sometimes handy, because otherwise you've got to smash a few fruit flies. Ta-da! That's the culture made. In about 2 weeks' time, hopefully, we'll start to get new fruit flies emerging from here, and the cycle can start again. So we've had a lot of food left over, and we don't want a load of cultures all hatching flies at the same time, so we decided to put some into ice cube trays or similar and freeze the rest of the mixture so we can make cultures as and when we require them. It's worth mentioning, after several generations, the flightless fruit flies will begin to fly, so you may need to restock from a shop. So there we have it. If you want to save a bit of money, perhaps make your own live food, make some fruit flies. They're great for hatchlings of many species and smaller species of reptiles, amphibians, even fish. I think they're pretty good for sometimes. So if you enjoyed that video, which is the first propagation of live food video we've done, or you want to see more of our builds, we've got plenty of builds coming. We go for slightly quirkier species. Please consider liking and subscribing, and hopefully we'll see you again on the Tim Reptile channel. Thanks, YouTube. Take care.
You missed out TikTok.
Rolling.
Rolling.
Rolling, rolling.